So today we're asking the question, is an event just a party? And we say, or I say fundamentally, the answer is no. And from your experience, what would you have to say to that?
Well, we've just been talking about how it's not a party, I agree. It has to be integrated into the overall strategy, the PR strategy that you have for the company, for the client that you're working with, because you can't just tag it on as a separate event. It needs to work with what the overall message that the company wants to get out, and really benefit them at the end of the day. So it should be fun, but there needs to be an end goal and proper reasons behind it that will benefit everyone involved.
I think events can be quite a big cost to a company, and in previous experience, clients have just found that, in other agencies I've maybe worked in the past, that it's just been a party, as we talked about. Mm-hmm. The same people turning up, the same people drinking, the same people eating the food, and nobody's really getting...
There's no real benefit to another event.
And I think from clients' point of view that we work with now and in the past, events really need to be something that there's going to be added value and that they're going to invest their money wisely. Mm-hmm. So as you say, what are the guests going to actually take away from the event? What's the overall objective from it, and what are you trying to communicate with them? Because if you have your objectives, you then know who your audience is, because that determines that, then you then start to think about all the things you need to do to make that happen and to make the key messages sort of come across.
Yeah, quite often, like you said, it's a big cost, so you need to make sure that everything that you want to do fits into the client's budget, because especially at the moment people don't have lots of extra cash just to throw away on something that's not going to do them any good. So you need to kind of come up with a set concept and go with it and make sure you don't run over budget, because no one's going to thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I think keeping control of things like that all the way through as well, because the more you get involved in events, generally things crop up, like you might not have thought about a supplier for this. For example, we did an event, it was a royal opening last year for the thermal energy plant, and we had to use a field as car parking space, and then we had to think, right, well, it's a field, it's going to get bogged down, we're going to get it laid basically so cars can park on it and not get bogged down in mud, and that was an additional cost. And then we had to get a road closed for it because it was a country road. So there's many things that you have to think of and people you have to contact, and you need to just keep control of the budget, because it really can spiral out of control. As well as that, you kind of at some points have to maybe sort of lead the client as well into their sort of budget, because sometimes clients can get excited about things, and although they
carried away.
Absolutely, and we could just do this or we could just do that, and I think the reason there's a budget set in the first place is so that things don't get carried away. And it's an important
comes down to having the right presence there and actually managing the event, having people there that have been briefed properly, know exactly what, as you've said, the concept and the aim of the event is. People who aren't going to crumble under the pressure, aren't going to get distracted, aren't going to try and
join in a party,
participate in the party, and who know what the desired outcome is and are going to work towards that goal.
I think all communication, you need to know what your resource requirements are from the start as well. We sometimes, depending on the size of events, work with one or two other different companies to try and people that we've worked with before that we know actually will work, that are experienced in events as well, so that there's a bigger team of us and we all work well together. But communication on the day is also really important. So we've had to get video communication between like us and security teams and us and our own events team and things like that. So it's important to know how to communicate with people on the actual day, because there needs to be a plan B if something goes wrong, if the weather kind of is bad, or if it has to be cancelled for some reason or whatever, then everyone needs to have a sort of backup strategy, know what to do, and communication on the day is vital.
And then it's not just that kind of internal communication, it's like your external stuff, if you're putting it out over different platforms, or if you're using social media, make sure You might even need one person where that's their sole job, is to make sure, you know, things are regularly updated
Keep pushing
on
it out.
Facebook, Twitter, or if it's more of a corporate thing, LinkedIn, whatever you decide to go by, to make sure, you know, not only is this for the people attending the event, but those who maybe couldn't make it or are interested in what you're doing have the opportunity to see what it is you're doing. You know, obviously the more people you can reach, the better.
Yeah.
It's quite important.
I think as well, measurement and feedback is important, because then you can actually, you know, if it's a media relations exercise, then you can potentially sort of look at your media coverage and evaluate that. But I think from an event, it's difficult to quantify, so you have to kind of say, right, yeah, so how are you going to do that? Is it going to be by guest feedback, or is it by data collection, or is it what is it? So from the outset, you should sort of have an idea of how you want to measure that as well. So that again you can then say, has it been added value, and have we got our messages across to people. I think enjoying the event from you know, from having led events, it is stressful, but it's also important that you know your limits and that you can actually enjoy it at the same time, and to make it enjoyment for the staff that you work with, like the team, is important as well.
At the end of the day, you're reflecting the client as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So top 10 tips.
Top 10 tips, Laura.
Okay, so keeping it simple, obviously setting objectives, and obviously a budget. Research is really important, so research for suppliers, researching your team, researching for a guest, that maybe a guest speaker, your resources, and your communication with them as well, in terms of briefing, in terms of debriefing, in terms of on the day. Concept, we talked about briefly there. That will have to include things like your branding, or your messages, any product that's on display. Negotiation as well, with suppliers. Guests and their requirements, so trying to leave no stone unturned, so that you're anticipating even things like brolly stands and coat stands and things like that if it's at a venue. Measurement and feedback. One of the most important things, I would say, taking control of everything. Control, so that you know at any time what's happening, so that you know where people are, what they're doing, and that you can communicate again with them if there's anything that needs to be done, or if there's a crisis situation especially. And enjoying the event, I think, is probably number 10. I enjoy doing events. I think we've all enjoyed doing events together as well. So
So to sum up, is an event just a party?
No, definitely not.